Welcome back to Global Gaming Woman's Fair Game podcast. I'm joined in the studio with my two lovely co-hosts for today, Kate and Bronwyn. So welcome back, ladies. How are you doing?
Hello, hello.
We're all wearing green today. I just
know.
noticed.
I love it. I love it.
Very not planned, very serendipitous and coincidental. So just great minds.
Always love it. Great minds think alike, right?
Yes.
Great. And so we're here today in the Light and Wonder podcast studio. So glad to be back.
Yes.
And just want to remind everyone that you can contact us at fairgame@globalgamingwoman.org. We want to hear from you. And so please share your thoughts and on topics you want to hear. And we'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode because we're really excited
we're
to move
so
forward.
excited about this one. Bronwyn and I were in the back room going, I cannot wait because we know nothing about this and we're super excited to learn.
Yes. I've been wanting to learn more about tribal. I've only supported commercials. So I cannot wait for this lesson.
So great, because in this episode of our Fair Game podcast, we are going to focus on tribal gaming, as you mentioned. And since the passage of the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act in 1988, I believe, but don't quote me on that because we have an expert that will dig into that. But tribal gaming has become a very vibrant and integral part of the overall gaming industry in the United States.
And I love tribal gaming, just the amount of community impact and the amount of, this connection that they seem to make that maybe we don't see on the commercial side. I mean, to those of us on the commercial side, it's like a, unicorn out there. I'm so excited to how the inner workings just fascinate me.
Building revenue, but also making that community impact. I mean, that is so special. The value alignment, it becomes more than work, right? It's more than just this transactional job that you're doing just for money. It's so much more.
Yeah, it's for your family. It's for your tribe. It's like your roots. This is, As you can see, we're totally nerding out even before the episode starts. Yeah.
No, and I can really, really relate to that. I mean, this has been kind of my latest iteration.
Right.
I joined Foxwoods now, right before the pandemic and before Wonder Nation. But both Foxwoods and Wonder Nation are tribal entities. So they're owned by the Mashantuck and Pequot Tribal Nation. And I can tell you that in all of my experience on the commercial side, both on the supplier and operator side, it is just a different feeling and a different energy working for a tribe. And you do feel like you're working for a bigger purpose and a bigger mission. So excited about that. And I think before we introduce our guest, I just want to share a few key stats. And so in the American Gaming Association's State of Play kind of report that they released for 2024, it talks about tribal gaming. And I'm saying that the combined community overall economic impact is over $100 million, or at least almost $100 billion.
Billion, right?
Not billion.
With a B.
Million, like B.
Yeah.
B, $100 billion.
It's insane.
So it's really big. It's almost equivalent to commercial gaming with over so many jobs. So just under 700,000 jobs creation and 18 billion with a B tax impact, in terms of the rev share that tribes contribute to their respective states. So
that's huge because you look at Vegas, you see these big casinos, and you think, money. But the tribal communities and the amount of locations they're in rurally is out of this world.
Yeah.
We found that, and when we were doing another episode, I said, "Wow, these numbers are crazy off the charts in terms of what tribal impact does to these local rural areas."
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. And isn't the overall a true revenue of the casino gaming industry, both commercial and tribal, is over 100 billion or about 100 billion?
Yes.
So if you look at that, and then you look at the economic impact of tribal, I mean,
it's
that
like
is just
equivalent
remarkable
to what you're bringing in.
Exactly.
For the industry overall. So,
it's amazing.
So it's really good. So without further ado, I know we can spend an entire series dedicated just to tribal gaming and only scratch the surface. But we have a very special guest for this episode. Her name is Raquel Buari, and I met her a few years ago in DC. We were on a panel together, and she's just very, very dynamic. She is a member of the Pokagon band of Potawatomi Indians. She's an attorney, a mother, a casino executive, and she was recently promoted to Executive Vice President of Administrations for Four Winds Casino. But even in that, she's the youngest. She's the first tribal citizen or minority in that position.
Wow.
And she's the first female in the role. So lots and lots of
Wow.
firsts for her.
Wow.
So
She's like a quadruple threat.
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love this.
Well, I can't wait to meet her. Let's bring her.
Okay, great. So let's get going.
Go.
Well, hello, Raquel, and welcome to the Global Gaming Woman Fair Game podcast. We're so happy that you can join us.
Hello, good evening. I'm glad to join you. I'm very excited.
So before we get started, I think congratulations are in order. So you're recently promoted to Executive Vice President of Administration for Four Winds Casino. So that's very exciting.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
Yes, snaps.
Yes, just a few short, long months ago.
We all know how that goes.
Yes.
So I'm going to jump right in. I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking to you about your why. So I like to start talking with, just a little bit about your background. I know a lot of how you show up as a leader is tied to your identity. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So my identity, very multifaceted. So my father's African American. His ancestors were from Mississippi and certainly from the transatlantic slave trade. My mother, her mother was an Irish immigrant, full-blooded Irish immigrant, and her father is Native American, Pokagon Potawatomi. And so quite a mix there, and kind of growing up with all of those cultural influences certainly influenced who I am today, but also those are my racial backgrounds. But if we're talking about socioeconomic and those factors as well, which I think correlate a lot of times, right, can correlate with your racial makeup. Definitely very humble beginnings. My parents certainly struggled immensely, and my grandparents before them even more so. My grandfather and his siblings would tell you today that they had dirt floors growing up, right? So that, just a couple of generations ago, we didn't even have finished housing floors, and so that's kind of where I come from that standpoint. And first in my generation to have post-secondary education, so first to get a college degree in my family. And so those are kind of the main drivers, right, when we're looking at just basically what drove me to strive. I think a lot of folks that sort of meet that generation where you are a first of so many, right? First to get an education, first to have opportunity to really financially support yourself and your family. It comes with some pressure with that, right?
Yeah.
And you either take on the pressure, take it on, the bull by the horns, or you don't.
No.
And I did.
Oh, absolutely. I was about to say that. I'm sure that comes with a level of pressure and responsibility. And so when you think about that and you now look forward thinking, how does that impact how you lead and how you show up as a leader in your company, but also in just kind of as you navigate life?
Yeah, I think that it certainly gives you a greater sense of responsibility to lift others up as you lift yourself, right? Lift others along with you. So I think it has really driven me as a leader to make sure that I'm being a mentor, right? To making sure that I'm doing everything in my power, right? There's certain things I wouldn't single-handedly be able to change, right, about society and about, even my community at large, but I can be part of a vision and an effort to remove some of those obstacles for the people that come behind me. And so I try to show up and do that as much as I can every day.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So today's episode is really centered on tribal gaming and empowerment. And so I want you to put on your attorney hat and maybe your historian hat. And can you talk to us a little bit about the history of tribal gaming and the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act?
Absolutely. And, I certainly could spend a lot of time talking about the history, but I know we don't want to focus the whole time on that. It's not the sexiest topic, but I think there's some important takeaways for sure, so that I want to highlight. So IGRA was passed in 1988, and it was really a result of a couple of court cases that happened in 87. That one of them was settled in 87. And it was kind of a sister case. So, and it's funny because I was actually born in 1987, so I kind of have a tie to this history, and a lot has happened in that what now 37 years or so. So, in 87, the California versus Cabazon Band of Mission Indians was decided, and that was a case very similar to one out of Florida with the Seminole tribe. And in both instances, essentially, the states were allowing card rooms. Poker rooms. So they were not an illegal activity in the state. They were legalized forms of gambling. And during that time frame, the tribes, and there were fewer than today, fewer tribes that were federally recognized at the time, but those that were, there was a push toward tribal self-reliance. The federal government had quite a bit of treaty obligations to help support these tribal nations that were federally recognized, and the federal government wanted to be able to relieve themselves of those obligations, which would occur if the tribes were able to sustain themselves financially to some extent, right? So there was a push from the federal government for tribal self-reliance, and there was always, obviously, the goal for the tribal nations themselves to become self-reliant and to be able to increase the services to their citizenry. So in both instances, the Seminole tribe and the California Cabazon Band opened card rooms in an attempt to do just that. And in both instances, essentially local authorities attempted to come in and shut them down, saying that they were operating unregulated, unauthorized card rooms. And in both cases, the tribes sought an injunction to prevent them from shutting them down, saying you don't have the authority to come onto our sovereign land and tell us that we can't operate these card rooms. The decision in both cases was favorable to the tribes. I hesitate when I say that because most basically it was favorable to the tribes, but the courts failed to answer, I think, some very key questions in regards to sovereignty itself. But the courts nevertheless did decide, yes, tribes, you are correct in that because these are legal activities within the state's not coming in to try and shut down illegal activities. They're coming in to attempt to exert regulatory power over you, and the states do not have the power to do that. And so post that Cabazon decision in 87, there was a big political upheaval. Lobbyists and leaders from all around the country say, there has to be a decision made in regards to how gaming is going to be regulated on tribal land. And there was obviously a wide spectrum of thoughts. Some state leaders and federal leaders saying there needs to be some either federal oversight or state oversight, given the sort of public health concerns in regards to gambling, and as well as just safety and security of the game, ensuring that it's operated in a fair manner. And then obviously you had tribal leaders saying we're sovereign nations. We should be able to be given the deference to regulate these activities on our lands in the manner that we see appropriate. And so IGRA in 1988, so very shortly, they for Congress, very quickly they made some decisions, and then 1988 is when IGRA was passed, and it really was a compromise between all those sort of thought processes, right? And it created these classifications of games, and you'll hear class 2 games versus class 3 games are the main ones you hear about. You don't hear about class 1 because they're very low stakes games, and essentially it gave tribes this codified right now to certainly offer gaming, but with some limitations and some sovereignty takeaways, if you will. I'm trying to figure out a politically correct way to say it, but we had tribal nations were essentially the sovereignty was, sovereignty's always been with limitations, right? And IGRA was no different. So when it came to the highest stakes games, which are what are considered class 3, and those are those games where you're playing against the house, right? Where the house generally has the advantage, your traditional table games, blackjack, Pokagon, craps, games like that, as well as traditional slot machines at that time, the only slot machines, which are random number generator as far as the math. Those tribes could only operate if the state in which your sovereign tribal lands lie legalized those games, one, and then between the state and the tribe, there's supposed to be a negotiation in good faith and come to terms on what we call compact agreements. And those compact agreements have a full spectrum of what they can include, but historically they always include, a revenue share, essentially the state getting a portion of those revenues, and then some level of agreement by the tribe to operate under certain state regs and laws. So definitely some power, if you will, given to the states over the tribes in regards to those highest stake games. And then the class 2 games, which are essentially your games where you're playing against other players. Poker is the main one. And nowadays we have poker machines, class 2 slot machines. Those can be regulated entirely by the tribal scheme, if you will, which includes both that tribal nation's particular gaming commission that they must create, as well as a federal gaming commission, which is the NIGC, National Indian Gaming Commission. And so, it was a point in time that tribes were given, obviously, a great opportunity to create a catalyst for financial empowerment, but at the same time, it didn't come without some compromises.
So much history there.
Yeah, this is fascinating. I'm learning myself as a host on the pod.
No, and that's why I was very deferential at the beginning that, let's hold on because we're going to get a history lesson. So I appreciate that. Good. And so can you talk about how now this translates to the experience that your tribe had with bringing and kind of opening Four Winds Casino, because now, you have this opportunity and your tribe is taking advantage of it. So what did that process look like?
Yeah, so it was quite a lengthy process before we first opened our first property in Michigan. So we are, I should start by saying our tribe has lands in both Michigan and Indiana. The first property we were seeking to open was our flagship property in New Buffalo, Michigan. And we're not unlike many other tribes that when we first sort of placed our land into trust for the purposes of gaming, which is something that is required by IGRA as well, and it has to have some approval at the federal level. There were some fights that we had to take up in the courts against some local groups and lobbyists who were against sort of the expansion of gaming. And as you may or may not know, Michigan has a lot of different bands and tribal nations within its borders, some of which had already entered into their compacts, some of which entered around the same time as us, but most of us with a little bit of a fight against, again, some folks that didn't want any expansion outside of the commercial casinos, which are only in Detroit, Michigan. So we got through that. The band got through that. Our leaders at that time, along with their attorneys and lobbyists, worked through that, and the compact was passed and approved, and we got to working to prepare. But as tribal nations who are first entering an industry, right, where generally no one from your tribal nation has any experience unless they sort of left the area and worked for another gaming enterprise, for instance. Most of the time you're going to need to rely on some outside expertise, and that was no different for us. So our tribe began with a management company, a gaming related management company, to really help us get off the ground, and to sort of teach teach us how to keep that success going on our own, and which took some years. So we had a management company for several years, and then was able to transition away from that management company and manage things on our own shortly after that, a few years after that, and then started opening our other properties. We opened 2 satellite properties in Michigan. And then about 2017, 2018, once our band leaders were able to finalize or start negotiations, with the state of Indiana, we opened our facility in Indiana. But we started sorry for the background. We started
So cute.
Actually with just Class 2 gaming in our Indiana property, because those compact negotiations did take several more years. And as I mentioned earlier, the Class 3 gaming is not allowed until that compact agreement is finalized and approved. So we started with Class 2 gaming, which was actually very successful. The Class 2 products are very comparable to Class 3 nowadays. Sorry for the noise.
Oh, no.
Sorry, just a moment.
Nothing to apologize for. This is real life. We're real here on the pod. Yeah. Hey there.
Don't be upset, buddy. We're learning a lot right now.
Yes.
We got this.
He's like, bye-bye, mama.
So cute. I know.
This happens in meetings all the time,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So this is like a real-time activity going on here.
Yes.
Real
I
life.
am so sorry.
No, do not apologize.
good.
We all enjoyed that
apologize.
thoroughly.
Exactly.
We needed a reprieve.
Yeah. Yes.
He's like, it's too serious in there. You guys need to lighten it up. I got you.
But yeah, so we started with Class 2 in Indiana, and then once that compact was finalized, we added Class 3. And along that long period of time of opening all those properties, we continued obviously to increase revenues, which increased the amount of support we were able to provide to our tribal government, and continue to increase all of the services to our citizens, from education, healthcare, law enforcement, our court systems, all of the above. And we've went a long way from when we first started, for sure.
So, that leads me to the next question. You touched on it a little bit already. We often hear about the empowerment and economic impact of tribal gaming. And so can you talk specifically about the impact that it has had on your tribe? You talked about that a little bit just now, and also on the surrounding communities in the states of Indiana and Michigan, because it's not just, it definitely benefits the tribal community, but I don't think we talk enough about the halo effect it has more broadly.
Absolutely. So, I talked about just sort of the way that money is able to just build, governmental infrastructure, right, and services. But also for us, it was very important, I think, for a lot of tribes to provide opportunities for citizens individually to develop, right? So one other big piece of that is just professional development opportunities. So we have a development program for any of our citizens that, would like to partake in it, and that comes with all types of opportunities for free education, free classes, all of the above. And so that's a positive, right, to sort of get our citizenry to a place where education is not out of reach, right? It's there for the taking, and that was huge. That's huge for us, right? Because regardless of where the industry may go or where revenues may go in the future, we are able to set the citizens up for success themselves personally, transferable skills that they can take everywhere. That's invaluable, right? So that's one thing. And in the broader community, obviously job creation is one thing that any large organization like a casino brings. So we employ about 3,000 employees in our properties. So that's 3,000 more jobs to those communities that we were able to provide, as well as just influx of financial support to lots of community needs. So we've been able to provide millions into infrastructure, local infrastructure, for our surrounding communities, public schools, healthcare, outside of our tribal nations in the communities that we operate and support. So all of that has produced, great dividends, great partnership, great relationships. But tribal nations have always been, I think, very focused on not only serving our own communities, but those who are our neighbors, right? Because those are the communities we serve. Those are our guests. Those are our neighbors.
And so one of the things you talked about when you talked about empowerment was professional development. And I think you are a recipient. You started with Four Winds as an intern
Yeah,
you said about a year after the casino first opened.
I did. And I had, definitely had absolutely no plans of going into the casino industry. We talked a little bit about sort of, generational success, right? And sort of breaking those barriers that our earlier generations weren't able to. So it was when I had my internship with our casinos with Four Winds a year after we opened. I was it was the summer before my senior year at university, and I actually had gotten pregnant at 21, was kind of a single mother. I wasn't married at that point in time. We didn't end up getting married. So I was a single mom getting ready to have a baby, which was actually the same time that my mother had her first child. And she was a single mom at that time. Her and my father ended up marrying. But so I almost saw myself, right, sort of reinventing those same sort of what we call generational curses. And for my mom, she did not have the opportunities and support to be able to get through that period of being a single mom and young and go on to get an education and be successful. But she, in turn, ensured that I was not in that same position. So she was very supportive and made sure that, this was not going to mean I had to drop out of school or I had to, not fulfill my dreams and my aspirations. And so once I made the decision I was going to do this internship, it was really because it was just a paid internship and I knew I needed to make some money because I had the baby coming, right? And then fast forward, he was born in January, fast forward to May, I walk across the stage and I'd gotten a call from the casino, from the legal department saying, hey, if you're interested, we really like you to come back and work for us full time. Oh. And so, to have a job waiting for me, right, as a graduate and a new mom, I felt like I couldn't really turn that down. If I was in a different situation in life, if I didn't have the baby, I may have kept my options open and said, this isn't what I want to do. I don't want to be in the casino. And maybe I would have went elsewhere. But life circumstances being what they were, I took that job. I took that opportunity and turned out well for me. And here I still am.
And so when you think about those formative years, who do you think had the biggest impact on you staying and continuing to level up in your career?
I think it really was my child, my firstborn child. I have 4 children now, but that child who's now in high school. I think once you have your first child, it really becomes a game changer for you as far as your why, right? And I think that so after a year of being at the casino, I decided I was going to go ahead and go back. I was going to pursue my law degree, which is something I'd always planned to do. And it was very hard. I couldn't stop working because I had to support the baby. So I was working full time and doing a part-time program at the law school. So it was very tough, but coming home to him every day kept my motivation levels high enough to get me through it. And then I think as the organization kept supporting my professional growth and it was, producing success for me, which is in turn producing a better life for him, I felt like I couldn't walk away. And then I got to a point where I loved the feeling of seeing our operations succeed and knowing what that meant for my children and all the future generations of our tribe. And so, you know, when you're working for an organization that does not just impact your paycheck, but also impacts your family and your children and your future generations, and the opportunities that will be available to them, it means a lot more to you. And I think that's really a combination of that and supporting, you know, my family is kind of what's kept me here.
Yeah, that is so powerful. And I see your books behind you too. I guess you're a reader, Michelle Obama, Eckhart Tolle. You've got, it's great support system, and it sounds like a great perspective.
No, absolutely. I mean, you've definitely developed into this very empowered leader and executive. And so now, as we're kind of thinking about, you know, really educating people on tribal gaming and tribal sovereignty, for someone starting out, new to the industry and new to the career and new to this, and maybe even now kind of through listening to you saying, hey, I want to learn and maybe, you know, think about tribal gaming as a career option. What are some things that you would want to leave with them as a takeaway? What are things that are important for them to know?
Well, I think that tribal gaming as a career opportunity, you know, it probably doesn't have too many similarities to any career, but I will say that longevity is something that's not necessarily seen as a regular occurrence in the gaming industry. If you talk to folks, especially who are on the commercial side of things, when I say commercial, that's generally what we call non-tribal gaming. Longevity is not generally there. People kind of bounce around a lot because, you know, folks are generally, operators are generally working for their shareholders, and they're just kind of going through the motions, and there's not as much, I don't think, of sort of a family environment, a welcoming environment, one where folks are kind of all driving toward the same thing for the right reasons necessarily. And you don't, in tribal gaming, you see longevity. So for us, I want to say we have like 300 plus day one employees. So that means 17 plus year employees, which is really, really rare for our industry. And we've got, I want to say, over 1,000 10 plus year employees. And I think that speaks volumes just about the culture in the tribal gaming industry. Again, it really is more so like a family business. We're all there, you know, for the success of the organization, for the success of the tribe. And once you're bought in for that, as long as you are there for that culture and you're there for the respect of that culture, you could really be in there for the long run. And I think that's an awesome opportunity for anybody looking for a long-term career. And there's so many avenues you can take once you have that sort of baseline.
For sure. I love that. It's like lifelong, right? Not just family. It's you've made your own family with this community. That's beautiful.
Yeah, true tribe.
Yeah.
So, Raquel, once I want to thank you so much for your time, for your openness and vulnerability, and for sharing so much about you and your journey, and just really being personally invested in sharing. So we really appreciate that. But before you go, we have what we call our rapid fire question time. And at the end of each episode, we like to do this series of quick response questions that we all get a chance to answer. And it's really just a time for us to have a little bit of fun and get to know each other a little better. So will you join us?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Yay. And so before, we just wish you continued success, and we can't wait to just kind of continue to see you shine. And congratulations again. But okay, so this is going to be probably the most random rapid fire question segment that we've had to date. But
I really can't wait.
I know,
You're really playing this up right now.
So there's that too.
I know. Let's go.
Okay. So we'll start. Question one for all of us. What is the one thing everyone needs more of?
Time.
Anything.
Smiles.
Oh
sleep.
I was going to say love, but maybe that's because the song is stuck in my head.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Okay, so the next one, now getting a little bit more random. Would you rather be able to speak every language in the world or be able to talk to animals?
Okay.
That's a tough
That
one.
is a tough one.
I'm going to say language just because I think people are so interesting. I'm not sure animals, I could keep up the same level of conversation.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I would love to speak to animals because I love them, and I just would love to like just actually
wanna talk
chat
to your
with my
cats.
cat.
Yeah.
I mean, I do feel like we have our own language, but I agree. I would want to do every language. I love to travel, love people. So
That's good. What do you think, Raquel?
Yeah, I think same. I think I would love to be able to talk every language. That would be amazing. But and then animals, I just feel like if I could talk to animals, they say
become a
some really
vegetarian.
rude things.
Yeah.
I
yeah,
feel
they
like.
might.
Don't you
They're
think?
probably
might.
like,
They're
humans
not
are jerks. Yeah.
societally conditioned.
Yes.
Also, too, the amount of social impact and good that you
You
could
can
make.
do if you just take every
Yes.
language.
Like, I think about Amal Clooney. She
Yeah.
speaks a lot of languages
Yeah.
and she
No.
makes a lot of impact.
No, I think same here. I was going for languages as well.
Okay.
Okay, climb a mountain or jump out of a plane.
Couldn't do it.
Both of those make me so nervous.
Yeah.
I'm very scared of heights. So,
So
Oh,
both.
I think
so
if
She's
I
gonna go
had to
C,
do one,
no answer. Yeah.
right. If I had to do one, it would be mountain, just because my feet are on the ground somewhat. But I would
Agreed.
A
still
small
be so
mountain.
nervous.
A mini mountain.
How about you? Are you the only plane?
I'm playing.
Yeah,
I
girl.
Good for you.
I thought I would have done it when I was younger.
Yeah,
But
I know. I did do it when I was younger, but
okay,
now,
well, there you go.
now my mom would probably kill me.
It's like you get that adrenaline rush
Yes.
for days, right?
Yes, it is.
So
It
far,
really is.
Some
It's
of
like
us
you're
will never find out. Just
Yeah,
for the record.
We'll never
no,
find
like
out,
leading
we'll
up
never
to it, you're like, am I going to do it? I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it.
Oh.
And then you're like, okay. And then afterwards, you're like, man, I'm going to do that again. And then you're like, no, I don't.
Oh my God. I'd be scared. I'd be very scared.
Okay. So mustache, beard, goatee, or clean shaven?
Okay, I love this question because I love mustaches. I think they're so attractive. I should have lived in the 70s. Tom Selleck would have been my
Magnum
crush.
PI.
Yes. I am single if anybody has a mustache. Let me know. Reach out.
Plug.
I
That's fun.
I'm gonna go no hair. No hair all day. No
Right.
hair.
I'm beard gang, man.
Oh.
Give me
Raquel?
I
some.
like a beard too. I like a beard.
Yeah, I was gonna say beard. My husband
Yeah.
has a beard, so I feel like I have to say that. And,
Yeah.
but yeah, so he's, I love his beard. But I also at the same time would say, men out there, whichever one you have, it's beautiful on you.
Yes,
Oh,
But
yes.
Good call.
I like the
Raquel.
beard.
Yes, good call.
All love all around. Okay, and I'm going to wrap it up with this last one. So you're a burglar. You can only steal things that mildly, and you can only steal things that mildly inconvenience your victims. What are you stealing? Mildly inconvenience them.
Raquel's laughing. Like you got one.
Wow.
I think I'm gonna steal their floss just because I hate flossing. And I feel like none of us should have to do it. And so I'm ridding the world of floss.
Oh my gosh. I feel like a mild inconvenience, but that would really piss me off would be a missing wine key. That would get me.
Mine is definitely salt and pepper shakers.
Oh.
That's like the one thing you don't want to do to me. But it's mildly to you, but it completely ruin my day.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
I'm just the only devious one. I was like door handle.
Wait, that's not mild. That's
That's
your
my- I know, that's my whole
Giraffe
problem.
of it.
So okay. So I guess I can't do that.
You could really inconvenience
Those
them.
were really random. Anika, I'm very
Yeah,
proud
they
of
were.
you.
They were.
Like you came strong with the random.
Okay, well, Raquel, thank you so much for just your insight and your vulnerability, and then also just for playing along with us and spending time with us today. So really appreciate
Absolutely.
having you. And
Yeah, and
Yeah.
educating Brahman and I, it's been a great lesson, and we look forward to watching you and learning more about all the tribes and great history. And thank you very much.
Yeah, you are incredibly well articulated. You would be, I feel like you could train anybody on anything. So thank you
Oh,
for your insights.
And tell your
Thank
kids we
you.
love
That's
them
very
too.
Yes, we love your kids
They're
as well.
welcome back on the
They're
podcast.
Yes, they are.
Are you done yet,
They could be our
Mom?
oh,
next
dude,
guest.
I will not share that with them because they will be like, sign me up.
Always be in the window.
Thanks, Raquel. Have a great day.
Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate
you.
you.
All right. Thank you.